Fantasmic, one of the greatest nighttime spectaculars ever produced at Disneyland. A trip to Disneyland is just not the same without seeing this show, but it's also probably the hardest show to actually see. But that's why we're here, to make going to Disneyland a little bit easier for everyone. And in this video, we're going to give you our comprehensive strategy guide to seeing Fantasmic. Where are the best seats? How do you get them? Where is the standby? And when should I get there? Plus, a couple of secret weapons that may save you a lot of time and anxiety. All coming up next on Fresh Baked. Hi guys, David here with Fresh Baked. I've been on the record that Fantasmic is one of my all-time favorite shows at Disneyland. It's an epic, spectacular, innovative show that Disney has somehow found a way to put on right in the middle of New Orleans Square. But this location, along the rivers of America, while organic and wonderful, also makes it difficult to see. But we can make it easier with a little bit of planning and patience. The good news, though, is that this happens to be a specialty of ours at Fresh Baked. We've put in the time, we've seen the spots. While everyone is watching Fantasmic, we're watching where the crowds are going. And we put together a comprehensive guide that will make seeing Fantasmic much easier and less stressful for you. In this episode, we'll cover dining packages, standby options, where the best views are, when to get there, and even provide a few tips and secret weapons. And we'll get started right away with the easiest, best way to see Fantasmic, dining packages. Fantasmic does not have virtual queue. There is no fast pass. It used to, but since it reopened in May of 2022, it has been standby only. Standby only except for dining packages. All of those premium spots center stage along the rivers of America are reserved for dining packages. Even better, with those dining packages, you don't have to wait for hours to get one of those spots. There's no camping necessary. If you purchase a Fantasmic dining package, your spot is saved and guaranteed. It is, though, first come, first serve in terms of where you sit within that space, but a space for you there will be, and really all the spaces saved are excellent viewing, premium. The difficulty, though, obviously, is getting an actual reservation. They sell out pretty quickly. First, there's the Blue Bayou package that sells for $89 per guest, $35 per guest under 10 years of age. This package gets you a meal at the legendary New Orleans Square restaurant, then a reserved spot center stage for the first showing of Fantasmic later that night. River Belle Terrace has two dining packages. The first is the premium package for $75 per adult, $45 per guest under the age of 10. This is premium because you're guaranteed to see the first showing of Fantasmic, and also because you get to see the show from your table at the restaurant. These, though, they're not plentiful. Just one show reservation window is available, 7:15 p.m. The view is pretty good, but more importantly, it's really comfortable and just a little bit luxurious to be able to see this show while you're having dinner or after your dinner casually on the terrace out there at River Belle. The second package offered at the River Belle is the standard package for $50 per adult and $30 per guest under 10. The reservations are from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. and guests receive a voucher that can be used to gain access to the reserved area center stage on the rivers of America. The catch here, though, is that the voucher cannot be requested in advance. There is no option to opt in to the Fantasmic show when you make your dining reservation. The process is that you make a normal dining reservation for River Belle, and then on the day of your reservation, you would simply ask your server to upgrade to the standard Fantasmic package. And then there's the third option, the Hungry Bear on-the-go package, $35 per adult, $25 per child, ages 3 to 9. You can, quote-unquote, reserve this through the app just like you would make a regular dining reservation, but there is no seated reservation. As described, it's a boxed lunch or dinner that you can take on the go, be that at the Hungry Bear or anywhere else in the park. The real value here, of course, is the reserved seat. Once again, center stage on the rivers of America, and it's going to be either for the first or the second show. You'll be advised when you make your reservation. And unlike the River Belle dining package, a reservation here is a guaranteed spot for Fantasmic. Make a reservation for the Hungry Bear on-the-go dining package, and you have a reserved seat for Fantasmic. Now, I've been saying that all these dining packages get a center stage viewing area along the rivers of America. Those viewing areas are split into three groups, one for each package. Center, the very middle, is reserved for Blue Bayou. Right center stage is reserved for River Belle. Left center stage is for Hungry Bear. It's also the biggest section. Now, I don't consider any view to be significantly better than any other. Even the Blue Bayou section, which is center, they're all good. And once the show starts, you'll barely notice any differences in the view. In this area, everyone sits. That's worth repeating. Everyone sits in the dining package areas. So if you have trouble being in a sitting position on the ground for a little while, be prepared. I can attest that I was more than a little uncomfortable by the end of the show. So that's a quick summary of the dining package options, the best and most relaxing way to see Fantasmic, but these are limited. With that, let's move on next to standby. As mentioned, there is no virtual queue. There used to be FastPass in the before times. Disney opted not to go that route when Fantasmic reopened, and so far I think they are pretty happy with how it's gone, but this could change in the future. But as of now, there is no FastPass, no virtual queue. So for today, if you don't have a dining package, we've got to figure out how to see the show through standby. There are quite a few spots set aside for standby, but not all of them are available right away, and this is due to Pirates of the Caribbean. The first two that become available are those along the rivers of America in front of Cafe Orleans, and those behind the Tom Sawyer raft dock. Those open up pretty early for standby. The other viewing areas, you have to wait to see what happens with Pirates of the Caribbean. The rest depends on how busy Pirates of the Caribbean is, which we're going to get to in just a minute. You'll see guests camping along the river as early as 6:30 p.m., but that's generally just for those premium spots. Otherwise, you've got another hour or so before it starts to fill up, maybe 7:30 to 8 o'clock. Same again for the Tom Sawyer dock location. Early campers are there just so they can get on the rail. But that's it for standby until around 7:30 or so. But I mean, it does vary. It varies, like I said, depending on how busy Pirates of the Caribbean is. If Pirates is busy enough for an extended queue, then ropes will be up, along the bridge, over Pirates, and in the New Orleans Square walkways. If there are ropes up for Pirates queue, then you can't camp out for a spot. But if you see cast begin to take down those extended queue ropes, that's when you're close to being able to camp out. They'll take down the ropes in front of Cafe Orleans first. Next, they'll take down the ropes on the bridge over Pirates of the Caribbean. On a non-busy day, like this one, that's roughly around 7:30 p.m., probably not before. There's a minimum of time where they start taking those ropes down. But there are cases like when Pirates first opened, it was exceptionally busy, and the ropes here did not come down until something like 8:30 p.m. Once the ropes are down, cast will kind of hang around for a bit, asking guests not to camp just yet, as they need to make sure that there's no last-minute rush for Pirates. But assuming that is the case, guests can begin camping out in this spot shortly after the ropes are taken down. If the Pirates Bridge is your goal, try to be in the area around 7:15 p.m. and casually, do laps until the time is right, until you see that the ropes are down and the cast members are no longer shooing people out of the area. If the New Orleans Square walkways are your goal, you can probably start camping around, 7 p.m. If the rails along the rivers of America are your goal, you can start camping there around 6:30 p.m. Again, these times are all for the best positions for each standby, along the rail. They won't fill up right away. None of them do. So on that note, here's a handy tip. If you're scouting standby locations and aren't sure if you're in an area okay to stand, that is, before they put up the ropes that define the standby areas, look for these holes in the ground. These are where the stanchions with ropes will eventually be placed. So from this perspective, anything to the left of those holes in the ground are good and proper standby. Here's the New Orleans Square walkway around 7:30. Still lots of standby left. In fact, the ropes aren't even up yet. The rail at the bridge fills up pretty quickly, maybe in 10 or 15 minutes. But there will still be room, for a little while. You just have to be okay with standing awkwardly behind the others with no ropes up. Well, it feels strange to me anyway, but for you, maybe not. 7:45 along the rivers of America, and there's still lots of standby, and the ropes are now up, giving the area more definition and a definite idea of where you can and cannot stand. 8 p.m., and this is what I mean by awkward. The rail is now sitting down, and the guests who want to wait behind them just sort of stand there. But honestly, this is kind of a hack, because a lot of guests will see this and they don't want to stand there. They'll just keep moving, not realizing that they can stand there. But if you're willing to stand while the other people are sitting there in front of you, that's not a bad idea. Meanwhile, by 8 p.m., the walkway standby is mostly full, but they're sitting. And when all those guests stand up, a lot more room will be created. If you're running late and find yourself searching for a spot and see guests sitting at this point, you can try kind of stalking the area until around 8:45. That's when CMs will ask everyone to stand. Here, for example, 10 minutes to showtime here, and guests have stood And there are occasional spaces to fit in if you're a single, like that. But if it's a busy night, they might ask guests to stand actually earlier than that, by 8:30 p.m. But once they do, those spaces will fill up quickly. You'll see a lot of guests jump inside those ropes and fill in that space. Back on the bridge at around 8:20, and the ropes are up, giving the area more definition. Guests now feel better about crowding in behind the rail. You can still get in there. There's room to stand, just not large groups, individuals, groups of 1 or 2 or maybe 3 occasionally. By the way, you may be tempted by this spot here. It tends to thin out as you go down the bridge. It's almost always open, but I would pass on this, even as a last resort. I will say at this point regarding a lot of those fringe seating areas for Fantasmic, if you've seen the show at least a few times before, it can sometimes be fine, no matter where you stand. Just hearing the show and getting glimpses can't be enough. Your mind fills in the rest through reference. And we're going to find more spots like this later, in fact, but I would still skip this one. This is just about the least desirable spot, even last minute. And of course, there are the secret weapons, which we're going to get to soon. About 8:30 p.m., just about everywhere is full, but still sitting. And that's when you start looking for Plan Cs. There's the stroller parking area for Haunted Mansion. This is an interesting spot. The steps to the right of the stroller parking area are sectioned off to create a little more standby. You can actually sit on those steps. These areas tend to develop later in the evening, though, as they have to make sure that Haunted Mansion is not too busy. They have to wait till that crowd dies down, and then they start creating those spaces for guests. In both cases, the views are not very good, though, which leads me to our secret weapon that I've kind of saved for last because it's one of the last areas to be defined and one of the last areas to fill up, if it does at all even. But it's got a very good view, considering. If you're arriving at the show at the last minute, and I mean even 5 or 10 minutes before the show, even at showtime, you can do no better than the Royal Street Veranda. Nobody gathers here until maybe 30 minutes before showtime. This is 7:30 p.m. There's no ropes, no guests camping out before the ropes go up like they do in the bridge and on the rails. This is just after 8 p.m. The ropes are up, but still not a soul in sight waiting to see the show. But you can wait. You can stand anywhere within the roped-off area, including in front of those tables for the Royal Street Veranda. Feel free to chill here for a bit, actually. Have some clam chowder or fritters, then get up and walk over to the roped-off area. 8:30 p.m., some guests are finally starting to collect here, but unlike the spots along the rail, you need worry less about people standing in front of you because the ground here slopes from back to front. And that's one of the reasons that makes this kind of an ideal viewing area. It's not at all crowded, very casual. It's center stage, no trees, no lighting instruments. You're elevated above other guests in front of you, so your view is not blocked that way either. This is 8:42. And this is 8:53. As I walk through New Orleans Square, everything is pretty full everywhere else, but here I can casually walk into the roped-off area and get a really nice view of the show, like this. So I really, really love this spot. This is a great spot, especially last minute, but it's a good first choice too. If you can't get your Plan A on the bridge or along the rivers of America. Also, while we're here, we're next to another nice little last-minute option. This is definitely last minute, though. Behind us is a square section in front of Port Royal Curios. Pretty much the same view as in front of Royal Street Veranda, just a little bit to the left. You might have to see through a tree a little bit. But in my opinion, these are better spots than just about anything you can get in the New Orleans Square walkways as you get closer to Haunted Mansion. Definitely better than the view you get at the bottom of the bridge over Pirates of the Caribbean in front of that tree. Definitely give this one a try. I think you'll understand once you see the show how good a spot it really is. It actually looks better in person than it does through the lens. The lens does not give this seat justice. On the flip side, if you're looking for a secret weapon that provides more comfort, may I suggest the seating area next to the Stage Door Cafe. Not the River Bell, but Stage Door. Those are two different dining areas. If you want to see the show with a little more comfort, that is, sitting down, it doesn't get more comfortable than this, but you'll have to get there early. My recon suggests getting there around 7 p.m. if you want one of the closer tables by the rail. It's kind of a long view, and it's to the side for sure, but it's fairly clean, and as mentioned, if you've seen the show before, you don't really need the best seat in the house. It's kind of a veteran's move here. It's a place for people who visit the park often and don't mind taking a casual approach, sitting in a table for 2 hours, waiting for the show and just sort of seeing it acoustically, as it were. It just costs you a couple of hours, and that's it. That's your evening. And that covers all of the standby options, but that's just for the first show, the 9 p.m. show. But our next tip, and perhaps the most useful one, because it's one that's overlooked by a lot of people, is to simply wait for the second show. The second show is almost always less well attended than the first, and you need only kind of just hover around the area after the first show is finished. A majority of the first show guests will hang around the area to watch the fireworks, which, by the way, this is a very good plan B for fireworks, even if you're not there to see the Fantasmic first. I will say, though, that getting to Warren Square from Main Street directly after the fireworks show can be a real challenge, and that's because a lot of those fireworks folks are trying to see if they can't do the thing that I'm talking about, trying to see the fireworks show, then moving directly to New Orleans Square to see Fantasmic. Lots of people heading this direction at this time. But if you can be in New Orleans Square by 9:45 p.m., you should be in good shape at getting basically your pick of locations. Maybe not the very best possible seat, but there will be room for you anywhere you look. Ideally, if you're able to be in the area when the fireworks are going off, you're in a good position to slide into any spot you like once the fireworks are over and the first show guests move out. Now, some do stay for both shows, mind you. It's not a complete exodus. A CM I spoke with was surprised, actually, by how many guests camp for the first Fantasmic show, stay for the fireworks, then stay again for the second Fantasmic show. I mean, but can you blame them? Fantasmic is amazing. But that's a very underrated method for seeing Fantasmic. Be in the area, 9:45 p.m., wait for the second show. You have a pick of your spots, except for, obviously, the dining package areas, which are still reserved. All right, so let's recap. First and best option should be dining packages. They're a good value and an even better seat for the show. The best views, apart from the dining package views, are probably from the bridge over Pirates of the Caribbean and then along the rail of the Rivers of America, but those require a little bit of planning. The Rivers of America are especially competitive because those are the first places that open up for standby. 6:30 p.m. for the prime spots along the river, 7:15 p.m. for the prime spots on the bridge over Pirates. And for you late arrivers, our top hack for Fantasmic is to grab a spot in front of the Royal Street veranda, and you can do that as late as 8:30 p.m. probably for a good spot. But if you want the easiest, most stress-free way to see the show without a dining package, definitely wait for the second show. Get to the show area by 9:45, and you can get pretty much any spot you prefer once the fireworks crowd moves out. But no matter what you choose to do, this guide will hopefully at least remove some of the anxiety and uncertainty and pressure and give you a clearer sense of where to be and when. So thank you guys for watching, everybody. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Then follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked, on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney, that's fresh with no E, and on TikTok at FreshBakedDisney. And if you like our show and want to show your support, please do consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/FreshBaked. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, everybody. We love you very much. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. And fresh baked.